Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of OP Radio. I'm your host, Mac, with you again for another great week. We had a brief hiatus last week, but we're excited to be back. We've got some great guests here with you for you this week. I'll just go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Let's maybe start with Charlie. Charlie, how you doing this morning?
Doing well. Excited to be here. And thanks for having us up. So, hey everyone, my name's Charlie. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Decent.xyz. Up here with my co-founder, Will. Prior to Decent, was working in investment banking, covering the music sector, which is where I really got to know a lot of the needs for creators. Had been hacking on NFT applications sort of nights and weekends, but was able to transition that to a full-time gig here at Decent when I had the wonderful opportunity of teaming up with Will and our now current co-founder group.
What's up, folks? I'm Will. As Charlie said, I'm co-founder of Decent as well as COO here. I previously was working, I initially co-founded a nonprofit organization out of school. We worked to set up a logistic network to connect surplus food from farms to food banks around the US. So the company was called the FarmLink Project. We, in the last 3 years, have rescued and transported over 130 million pounds of fresh produce, feeding communities in need around the country. After that, did tech and media consulting. My background was in economics as well as architecture, which is a little irrelevant, but I've been around the space since, I guess, as an observer since about 2017, builder and contributor since 2021 when I teamed up with Charlie and started working on Decent. But yeah, our initial interest came from one of my good friends in college. Actually, ended up being an early hire member of Uniswap. So he has sort of shepherded me into the space. But I'm lucky enough to be here today and excited to tell you what we've been working on.
Thanks for that, guys. Sounds like you've got a bit of an eclectic background, the both of you, which I definitely appreciate myself. I wonder if you guys could tell us a little bit about the Decent origin story. Like, how did you guys meet each other, and how did you decide that you wanted to create this NFT infrastructure platform?
Yeah, for sure. So we actually each came to the idea independently, which was pretty funny. And it was our shared interest and vision for Decent that brought us together. So I've been covering the music sector, doing M&A investment banking. So I was working with a lot of the companies that independent musicians were using to facilitate their careers, in addition to like institutional song royalty funds. This was in 2020, so it was sort of like the early popularity wave of NFTs, I would say, as well. And ended up deciding that NFTs could serve as a really interesting instrument to let like retail investors actually have access to artist royalties, helping artists gain capital on more equitable terms, and also like letting fans participate in music in a way that was never before possible. That origin story is what led me to Will, and I'll let him take it from there, and then maybe circle back with what Decent is now. But since that founding idea, we've had an incredible journey shaping Decent into the more generalized protocol that it is now.
Yeah, to Charlie's point, we were lucky enough to be connected by a mutual friend when, after both of us had been sort of initially hacking on similar ideas in parallel. My interest initially in that music use case for NFTs came from one of my best friends from college, one of our other co-founders, a guy named Xander Carlson. He and I went to school together, and when I met him initially freshman year, he was just an independent artist releasing from a distributor account. By senior year, he actually had signed to Sony's Palm Tree Records, where he's currently signed today. He's been touring with Kygo and that group for the last 3 years. And to Charlie's point, we had started approaching NFTs as this instrument to make a more equitable system for artists. I can hand it back to Charlie, but ultimately, we started in sort of specifically exploring music applications for NFTs and Web3, but and did that actually in Y Combinator's 2022 batch, but since have through certain market conditions and explorations and experiments, we have ultimately come to what our current product is, which is multi-chain NFT infrastructure, as well as our core product, the box, which is sort of a Stripe for Web3 single-click transaction tool. So I'll hand it back to Charlie, and he can sort of walk through the progression of the last year.
Yeah, so I think that, like, to Will's to Will's point, the thing that like really drove our interest and the bit that we were excited about with NFTs and music was really this question of like how NFTs can facilitate a broader application. In this case, it would be, property rights over the royalty assets. And that interest of like how NFTs could evolve beyond being like the digital collectibles unto themselves to facilitating these like slightly broader applications in interesting ways is what drove a lot of our research and the products that we've released over the past 18 months. To that end, I'd say those initiatives very much led us to UMAC and Optimism, where we had an early conviction that NFTs and these NFT-based applications would have to exist on layer 2s. At the time, so this was probably last summer, there really weren't a lot of great ways for creators to deploy new and highly customized projects to layer 2 chains. So we evolved what was like a music NFT platform into a much more generalized protocol and NFT launchpad with like the express purpose of helping creators innovate across Arbitrum, Optimism, and Polygon. It's been as I'm sure the Optimism team has felt, we ended up getting quite a bit of traction in these ecosystems as collectors and also creators like both became more and more excited by layer 2s and the both like user experience but also like economic efficiency unlocks that they have. And as I would say like our protocol gained in popularity, we noticed like this other like very pronounced and pernicious problem, which was for the first time when multiple chains have strong market adoption, it actually introduces like this really big new problem, which is how do you transact across chains? So we started working on a product, the box, which is what Will referenced at the end. And the purpose there is, really to make it seamless for collectors to transport in between these chains just as easily as it is for creators to deploy to them.
Yeah. Got you. Yeah. And for those who may be familiar with some of these other NFT platforms in Web3, I wonder if you could just maybe explain a little more, like how would you differentiate Decent?
100%. So I'd say that we have taken like a very strong infrastructure view towards our NFT development. So, we think of like our customer stakeholder base, and I would say this is probably similar for other NFT platforms that, you all might be using day to day. There's really like 3 key stakeholders. The first is developers. The second is creators, really the lifeblood of the content you see coming off these platforms. And then the third is collectors. So, how are you attracting enough liquidity to your platform that's enticing for creators to exist there? I think that each platform has made like really strategic and interesting decisions, prioritizing one of these groups more so than the others. And for us, like the group that we've really taken a strong liking to is developers. So a lot of Decent's tools, they are accessible through our no-code studio. We've had hundreds of creators, be able to use that quite successfully, which, we're really proud of. But probably the tool set that we spend the most time on and most time really refining is our SDK, which enables developers to build, pretty highly customizable NFT-based apps that we just wouldn't be able to generally support in a no-code tool. And then our like protocol, and the protocol is both the NFT contracts and this cross-chain payments product. I think that to that end, like you end up seeing a lot of Decent's products in, custom minting pages or other companies' sites. And most of like the NFTs that, many of you in here might be holding from the Decent protocol, like you probably didn't actually collect through our site. And that's actually something that, we're really quite proud of and we'll continue to commit to moving forward.
Interesting. Yeah. So there's this, you mentioned this sort of 3-sided marketplace with developers, creators, and collectors. Sounds like you're more focused on the developers, but then also it sounds like with the box, that's more, am I correct in understanding that's more geared towards the collectors and creating this seamless cross-chain collection experience?
Exactly. Yeah. 100%. So, now that we were able to get the, I suppose, like supply side of applications moving with developers being able to, build all these awesome projects like Super Collector, for example, on Optimism, it is time to attack the other side of that marketplace, which for us is the collectors and making sure that there's always sufficient liquidity that these applications, have a strong user base to be selling into.
And to the point of, the box being this opportunity for, creating a better user experience for collectors. The tool itself is built to be integrated with any DApp, any protocol and platform out there. So it is a, developer focused tool with our SDK and APIs, or also, it's just integratable as a single React component that just replaces the mint button within any application, where it's super seamless, easy to integrate. And ultimately the value prop that is incredibly exciting about it is, especially for developers and companies that are starting to either integrate multiple chains or build directly on one non-Ethereum chain, instead of collectors or users needing to either already be holders of the native token on that chain in order to interact with the application. The box abstracts all bridging and swapping, such that now any application or any NFT marketplace can, with the box, enable all collectors to just use whatever token on whatever chain in their wallet they'd like to, and in a single click, purchase that NFT or make that transaction on whatever destination chain the application is built onto. So, we like to say it's really enabling companies, developers, applications to meet their user base at the user's point of liquidity. So as we see this multi-chain future emerging, where there's not just one main blockchain that is where all users hold their funds, or where all applications are being built, the payment modal is ultimately uniting that liquidity and making it so that really the application at a interface level, at a user level, is relatively chain agnostic.
Yeah. So crypto currently faces this challenge of like fragmented liquidity, right? There's all these like siloed blockchains, and from a user perspective, the UX is less than ideal. And so from what I'm hearing is that, from a collector's perspective, they can mint and collect this NFT wherever they happen to be, and they don't need to go through the often tedious process of bridging their assets to any given chain to collect their NFT. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that our goal with Box is to provide a seamless checkout experience no matter what chain the underlying application is on. And like Will said there, I think there's like a few like interesting ramifications when it comes to developers that, using a product like the Box. The first is, which Will mentioned, there's been this like arcane expectation that users have to bring their own liquidity to an application to be able to interact with it. That works in like a single chain world, but as like Optimism and the OP stack proliferates, for example, that imperative just like has to shift onto the application to meet users at their point of liquidity. The second is like when you think about like which ecosystems have had strong adoption and like what apps people are using, a lot of it ends up being like misaligned with what the application developers should be prioritizing. So like, for example, because I hold all of my tokens on Ethereum, I might just stay within the Ethereum ecosystem, even if the apps that I'm using have a worse user experience, like aren't exactly catering to me or like my entrance or my like closest community and community priorities. But I'm just going to be there because it's easy and I can't imagine like bridging and swapping, etc. I think like with the Box, what this unlocks, particularly from the perspective of like the OP stack, is like, okay, now I can just like go design, something like Zora Network, which is like tailor-made and for the express purpose of, having like a great NFT ecosystem. They can be focusing on, both like the underlying chain, the chain technicals, but and like the optimal user experience without having like any concern of users being able to access their application or like losing out on potential customers just because like they've gone off on this road less traveled. So I think it's like an interesting to think of from the perspective of like we've seen liquidity be like this major network effect and like source of lock-in for both like chain ecosystems and applications. But it's interesting to think about like what changes when that liquidity actually becomes like exportable outside of single ecosystems.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think this stuff should be abstracted, right? Like you shouldn't have to go through this painful process of moving around all these different siloed blockchains, right? If you just want to collect this NFT, you should be able to do it from wherever you are.
100%. And the sort of data that we collected and some of the different research that we did while developing this product was in talking to hundreds of both creators and collectors and other companies that we have gotten to know in the space, we put, asked questions. We had a survey, and of hundreds of responses, over 80% of people said if they go to a platform or a marketplace or to purchase an NFT or make a transaction and they don't have the native token on that blockchain to transact, that instead of going and having to, bridge and swap on external sites and then go back and make that purchase, they'll just leave. So really what this product offers to developers and applications is this opportunity to not just widen the addressable customer base from the current holders of the native token on whichever chain the application is built, as well as plus the small amount of people that will do that bridge and swap in order to make that transaction, and actually opens it up to all these applications now can address the market of any holder of any token on any chain. And so it really does widen the target market for companies and experiences as well.
Yeah, I think, probably a lot of us on this call, maybe we've been in crypto and we're sort of used to the bad UX and we've probably put in a lot of effort to do certain actions on chain, but really that should not be the case, right? It should be very simple and very seamless, because I agree with you, Will. I mean, sometimes it's like I'm trying to do something and you just hit multiple roadblocks along the way. And each of those roadblocks is a potential drop-off point for a person in their journey.
Yeah, it's like this, very conspicuous Stockholm syndrome that has persisted through the folks that have stuck around, interacting with all these applications, but it just doesn't have to be that way, right? So that's why we're particularly excited about the box.
Awesome. And so it sounds like the box has been your current focus up until now. I wonder if you could tell me and tell the folks listening a little bit more about what your current focus is and goals moving forward. Like, what's the roadmap look like for the rest of the year and moving on?
Yeah, absolutely. So we just actually released the box's SDK publicly on Monday. So we're currently working with a handful of teams across, right now 4 chain ecosystems, being Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon, and Ethereum, to install the box and start, having, I would say, probably 10 to 15 applications that'll go live with it over the next couple of weeks here. It should give us some nice data points and case studies about how it's being used. From there, we're actually going to be adding a handful of additional chains that are promising. So that'll be another exciting roadmap item for us. And I would say the final piece from a technical perspective on where we'd like the box to get to is actually spending quite a bit more time within the OP stack and being able to support L2 to app chain bridging as soon as any app chain has been deployed. So there's still this open question of how can a new app chain be able to port users over without some existing bridge like a Stargate, Axelar, Wormhole type adding support for that network, which is a high threshold for those chains. We have some ideas there. I think where you all can expect to see the box is certainly within applications, at the point of sale with a lot of NFT platforms, which is was the original inspiration for going on this path, as reading a lot of the experiences that we've had with Decent, as we've discussed on this show. But it'll also, I think, start to slip into a few other applications, probably most notable of which is fiat on-ramps. So, how do you go from fiat to ETH on Optimism as smoothly as possible? And then getting back to your UX point, Mac, the actual act of clicking buy once you have tokens in MetaMask is really quite seamless. It might be the best payments experience that has ever existed. It's just getting that money on chain to begin with and into the right spot is an unbelievable nightmare. So we think that's the other spot that the box will start to play a significant role.
And to Charlie's point about the box being able to plug in immediately with new chains as they pop up, but also existing protocols and applications, I think as the sort of multi-chain macro vision for the future of NFTs is proliferating, there's also this this idea of sort of modular pieces of blockchains as well. One example is EigenLayer that has gotten a lot of publicity recently, And what Eigenlayer does really well is sort of solve that cold start problem of those nodes. But ultimately, with the box as well, we see the box being a really seamless way to solve that cold start problem for new chains and protocols with regards to liquidity and actually like Charlie said, porting those users over. And so the vision really for Decent moving forward is the box is our core product. The box is what we are focused on, and we really see it being the de facto transaction mechanism and modular piece for the payments part of interacting across the Web3 ecosystem. And really, the vision of where it goes is akin to really a Stripe product for Web3.
Yeah, and for anybody who's been paying attention, there have been a slurry of NFT platforms migrating to OP mainnet of late, one of which is Decent, of course. And so I'm just super excited about what the future may bring. I think a lot of the groundwork is being laid right now and just making it a lot easier for devs, collectors, and creators alike to create NFTs, and just super excited and curious to see where this is going to all end up. I think it's very bullish for all creators. And yeah, super excited to have you guys working in the Optimism ecosystem. It's been a pleasure working with y'all.
We love working with you too, Mac. And, one small point to add for anyone, in the audience that is either building a product or is a developer, one, we will be at ECC. So if you're around there and want to meet up and talk, let us know. Two, over the next month or two, we will also be, exploring opportunities to be hosting different hackathons and sort of developer focused events. And really, I think one of the biggest points of pride over the last 18 months that, hasn't changed about us and our team is we take a lot of pride in our support and responsiveness and ability to be really hands-on with our users. So please always feel free to reach out, and we are happy to get you connected to our developers, to our core team, and help you integrate or even brainstorm and ideate on how you can take advantage of the box and other products to make your experience as easy as possible to build what you're doing. We really want to make it so that as a developer, as a founder, as a builder, you're able to focus on your core product and what you're putting out into the space, not worrying about some of these other connection points and how to be innovating on these smaller user experience pieces that we're able to offer in really easy integration ways.
Yeah, you guys were absolutely incredible. You held my hand through some of these commemorative NFT deployments, the WorldCoin NFT, Retro PGF3. So super appreciate that. I don't know if that's going to scale, Will and Charlie. You might need to figure something else out. I think you got on some calls at some late hours with me, but you were definitely extremely helpful. So appreciate that.
Of course. Yeah, it was our pleasure. And on the scalability point, that'll always be something that we hold dear to Decent, so we'll make it work. But
you might need to get your own computer, Charlie. It's a little inside joke because whenever I talk to Charlie and Will, they're always on the same computer.
The behind the scenes magic of OP Radio.
That's right. Cool. Well, I think we're kind of winding down here, guys. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Maybe direct folks that want to learn more about Decent, where they can go to do so.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us on. For anyone who wants to learn more about Decent, you all can click on, I think, the Twitter link in the banner up here. You can find Decent on Twitter. We have a bunch of posts on the product releases and then, links to our website and the relevant documentation. But other than that, it's, been a pleasure building in the Optimism ecosystem. We buy into the everything that you all are doing. So, app chains, the new smart contracts, future is optimistic, and there's going to be a lot of great stuff going on.
Charlie, I'm just now noticing it looks like you have a little OP red in your PFP.
Got to support even subliminally, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you both so much for joining us. I really enjoyed it, and really looking forward to continue to working with y'all on the team at Decent.
100%. Thank you, Mac. Last piece to just add to that call to action is if you click into that thread, like Charlie said, you'll see there is, amongst other NFTs that have already been deployed using the box, there is a commemorative NFT, a free NFT that we deployed, and you can go actually use the product on our site right now. So for all of you that want to test it out, please go check it out. Mint an NFT cross chain, and please, for anyone that you tell about the box, let them know we are always open to hearing feedback. We love feedback, positive and negative. I think in a lot of ways, negative is even more helpful. So please feel free to reach out at any time.
And for those listening to this later, the Twitter handle is at Decent.xyz. That's at DECENTXYZ. Thanks again, Will and Charlie. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you later. Thanks for joining us, y'all. Stay optimistic.
Thanks, Mac.
Thanks, Matt.